Okay, ready? 1, 2, 3. Hold on now. Wait a minute, fellas. Wait a minute. I think it goes something like this. Whoa. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Can somebody take these burdens off of me? Off of me. Can somebody take these burdens off of me? Off of me. Cause every time I turn around, there's something trying to keep me down. Can somebody take these burdens off of me? Off of me. Whoa, can somebody take these burdens off of me? Off of me. Can somebody take these burdens off of me? Off of me. When I look up, don't you know, burdens knocking at my door. So won't you come and take these burdens off of me? Off of me. Oh, come and take these burdens off of me. Off of me. Somebody come and take these burdens off of me. Off of me. Soon as I get up off the ground, my burdens knock me right back down. Can somebody take these burdens off of me? Off of me. Somebody take these burdens off of me, off of me. Somebody take these burdens off of me, off of me. Somebody take these burdens off of me, off of me. Well, off of me, off of me. Oh, off of me, off of me. Well, off of me, off of me. Get them off of me, off of me. Come and break the chain. No. Come and break the chain. Off of me. Get it off of me. Off of me. Get it off of me. Off of me. I need somebody. I need somebody. I need somebody. I need somebody to get this burden. To get this burden off of me. Can somebody take these burdens off of me?
Hey guys, I apologize for all of this technical difficulty, but as soon as everyone gets in here, I will begin. But in the meantime, I got to show off, y'all. I got to show off. Look at the shoulders. I got to show, hold on. I got to show off. Got to show off. Look at my shirt is swinging now. Shirt is swinging. Look at this. Look at your girl, y'all. Look at your girl. See, my shirt is swinging. I got movement. This shirt used to be so tight on me, y'all. Your girl is getting it down, you know. Just want to show y'all that. You know, I just got to show off. All right, sorry. I know it's not appropriate, but okay. Just trying to wait for the folks to get in, y'all. Hi, hey, Shannon. Hey, Bree. Hey, Nosy Rosie, Tijuana. Hello, everybody. Trying to get the folks back up in here. There go Miss Azriel. She's Azriel now. Hey.
Should I change my voice? No.
Change it to wherever you want to change it to.
I'm just joking. I was just in here as a man. Oh, you know what I felt? I feel a little raspy this morning.
You did?
Yeah.
Yeah, I thought everybody would be prepared.
You know I'm sleeping in.
No, I thought everybody, you know, I ended the other one so everybody could get in here and let's get it going. And we just can't get it together this morning. I apologize, guys. We just can't get it together. I don't know why someone suggests for us to do in the morning because I already know people are not.
That wasn't me.
I already know, I already know this was not going to work out smoothly. I already knew it,
When you said morning, I was like, oh my God.
At least you knew. Other people was like, yeah, we'll do it. We'll do it. And this, guess what? I never suggested the morning, y'all. I never suggested the morning. I never. And you see, we still can't get folks up in here.
They're probably still hitting the other link.
Hold on. All right, here come Geddes. Hi, Miss Geddes.
Hello.
Hi.
I'm on another phone.
You sound very clear. You sound
Good
very
job.
clear.
Okay, I'm on a different phone, so we'll see.
You have no hope in your phone?
I'm just saying, if you hear the static again, then it wasn't me.
She still try. It ain't me. It wasn't me.
Okay, she said she was going to come in, and I don't see her. Lord have mercy. Who's that? There she is. Let me edit her name. She is going to be the judge. Is she going to be the judge? All right, there she is. Woo! Thank you, Judge.
You're welcome. I'm sorry. I was trying to get it downloaded. It kept kicking me out.
Okay.
Okay, where we starting at? What page?
873. All right, let's get going.
That's courtroom deputy. Oh, where'd she go?
Hold on. 1 second. We apologize, everybody. We apologize. Okay, let's get started from the beginning again. Hold on. So, guys, we're going to start right now.
Hold on, Sylvia.
All rise. Line 7. Judge.
That's what I'm saying. You said 873. I don't see a 873.
On the corner of the pages. Not in the corner of your tablet, on the corner of the pages where it says proceedings. Right hand corner. You see a whole bunch of numbers. Start
And we're
7.
starting at line 11.
Are you there? Okay. Miss Geddes, don't ever make a suggestion of doing early in the morning again. Okay, Miss Geddes?
Hey, I'm just trying to get the information to the people in the shortest time frame possible.
This is the most difficult thing here. Please excuse us for our technical difficulty, please, please. And your phone, Miss Geddes, works pretty well. I just want to tell you that.
Thank you.
So, what's been new? Nothing's new. She's back. Sylvia, you're muted.
I know. I'm bringing in another canic. Where is she at? Is she coming back? I got you. I got you, canic. Um, where is the other person? We're on page.
I was trying to be helpful and knocked myself out the room. Oh, Judge has small parts. Want to go until she gets here?
Okay.
Sounds good.
I'll be the judge. Okay. I'll be the judge, and that's canic. Okay. Um. All. All rise. Everyone can be seated. Let's take the witness, and we'll see you after lunch. All right. Anything before we break for lunch?
Nothing from the government.
I know this probably is pointless question, but do you know how much longer you have with this witness? With the witness?
I think we're about halfway through.
Okay. I just wanted to advise the parties that we'll take both days for Rosh Hashanah. Um, the question then is, although I think the jurors have already arranged their schedule around this Friday off, so I think we'll stick with the plans when we were not a holiday during the week. We'll take that Friday, all right?
I'm sorry, I did have one thing to raise. I'm sorry.
Sure. Which is a way for a getaway. Go ahead.
This witness, there are two questions that I would ask her that a truthful answer would call for her to reference the defendant's prior trial and the nature of those charges. The first, which I haven't asked her yet, which is, why did you tell the defendant that you were 18 when you were in fact 17? Her answer is that she was aware of the fact that he had previously been charged with sexual exploitation of a minor. In addition, when we return, I anticipate that this witness is going to testify about letters that the defendant had her write, including numerous falsehoods and embarrassing mentions. And she will testify that the one of the reasons that the defendant explained that she was doing this is that it could protect him, and so the past was not repeated, and he will reference conversations with his attorneys. I would ask that I don't know how much this will come out, but I asked that she be permitted to testify truthfully in response to these questions and that we not limit her answers.
Well, I think I made a ruling, a similar ruling. I think you actually ever asked that question with a prior witness. And I think we had come to some sort of agreement. But that, Mr. Canick, I don't know if your views have changed on that. Canick?
Unmute.
Canick? Oh.
I don't think it has, Your Honor, but I will certainly discuss with my team. The other thing, Your Honor,
Into the mic, please.
I guess I might have an issue with the verbiage that the government intends on eliciting in terms of sexual exploitation of a minor. Frankly, I don't know what the specific charges were.
I don't think, I think Miss Geddes maybe was just speaking generally. I think, I mean, you can either do it by leading the witness a little bit through the, or just refer in generally that he had this prior. However, you plan to refer it to without calling it sexual exploitation of a minor?
I think that's what he's actually charged with, but she is not going to say that at all.
All right. So after lunch, why don't you just give us heads up about what that might be? And then, like I said, I think this is the same ruling I made last time. So I don't think much has changed. But let us after the break, after the break.
I will.
All right. Thanks everyone. All right, here we go. All rise. Nisi 877. Are you there? Okay, let me go continue. Everyone can have a seat. Defendant into the courtroom. All right, are we ready for the witness? Oh, I know we're going to. Did you all figure what it is?
We haven't, but let me just tell the defendant.
Okay. Okay, we've resolved whatever. It wasn't even a dispute, but both on the same page. But how's the witness going to describe it?
I think so. I just want to ask counsel one more thing.
I'm assuming you've worked you've worked this out.
We're fine.
All right. If you need me, let me know.
Wait. No, we gotta let Canic talk.
Oh, I'm sorry. She said we're
Canic?
fine.
Okay.
We're fine.
All right. If you need me, let me know. All origin. All right. Let's get the witness, and then let's get the jury.
Oh, Your Honor, we may use the board on that easel if that's okay with the court.
Your Honor.
Judge 21.
That's 25.
25.
Oh, sorry. I don't know. Well, not a problem, I guess, but I don't understand how you're going to use it. Who can see it?
We're hoping the jury.
But it's facing here. Oh, okay. Let's get the jury.
Your Honor, can we approach for just one small matter?
With the court reporter?
Yes, please.
All rise. You may be seated.
Your Honor, I just received an email conveyed by our officers that the court reporter or the court sketch, not court sketches, sketch artist wanted to know if she could be blurring the faces of the individuals who are testifying under pseudonyms. We would support that. We would support that they be blurred just to further protect their identities, although I'll be candid, those.
You can't tell from those sketches anyway.
I don't disagree with you anyhow.
Sketching looks like Mickey Mouse or Minnie Mouse.
You realize, excuse me. You realize that sometimes My apologies, guys. Sorry. You realize that sometimes these transcript gets released. I'm not going to weigh in on that. First of all, I don't think that at least this let's that my hope is that no one can tell who you are those sketches. So I think it's not that of a big deal.
Thank you, Judge.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. I hope that you had a good lunch. We're ready to resume the direct examination of the witness. Go ahead. The witness is reminded that she is under oath.
When you first started living with the defendant and after you moved back to Chicago in 2015, who, if anyone, from high school did you stay in touch with?
I stayed in touch with Malat and a friend of mine named Mia
How did you stay in touch with them?
via text message and through Snapchat.
I
Court.
want to speak to you to keep your voice up a little bit. Your Honor, can I have an answer read back? Sure.
Now, do you remember what, if anything, the defendant did on October the 2nd of 2015?
No.
I'm showing the witness what's been marked for identification as Government Exhibit 205A. I'm showing the witness what's marked for identification as Government Exhibit 205A. Do you recognize what's shown in 205A?
Yes, I do.
Does that refresh your recollection as to what happened on October the 2nd, 2015?
Yes.
What happened that day?
I had expressed to a friend of mine that he had ejaculated inside of me.
And when you say he, who are you referring to?
The defendant.
And did you tell your friend this because this, in fact, had happened on that day?
Yes, it did.
And when? Do you recall where you were in early October of 2015?
I do not. No.
Wait, if anything, do you recall happening on October the 4th, 2 days later of this same year?
I do not recall.
I'm showing the witness only what's marked for identification as Government Exhibit 205D. And actually, may I approach, Your Honor?
Yes.
Yes.
Yes. Yes. All right. I thought you wanted a sidebar.
Oh, no. Does looking at 205D refresh your recollection as to what, if anything, happened on October the 5th of 2015 or October the 4th of 2015?
Yes.
What happened?
I had a conversation between a friend, and it was describing how the procedure for an abortion,
Why were you having that conversation with your friend?
because he had ejaculated inside of me.
And what, if anything, were you concerned about?
Pregnancy, because we had not used protection ever.
Do you recall having a conversation with the defendant about what he would do if you were, in fact, pregnant?
I do.
How did the defendant react?
He did, in fact, say that he would want me to get an abortion because he wanted me to keep my body tight.
And how, if at all, did the defendant say your age was a factor in that decision?
My age was a factor.
What did he say?
He said that if I was any other age, it wouldn't make a difference.
And how old were you then?
I was 17.
How did you feel when you believed that you might be pregnant and might have to get an abortion?
I was scared.
The government offers 205A and 205D.
Any objection?
No, Your Honor.
Okay.
And just to be clear, do you recall who you were talking about this with?
It was either Mia or Malak.
May I publish 205A?
Yes. Jury only?
Jury only, please. And there's several blurbs here. Who wrote what's reflected there?
I wrote those messages.
And what is the date on which these were sent?
October 3rd, 2015.
And can you read what's written here? Where my pen is pointed?
I said, you know, he nutted in me before this show today.
And again, you're referring to the defendant?
Yes, I was.
And what did you mean by the term nutted?
He had ejaculated inside of me.
And how about, what did you mean by his show?
Before his performance.
And again, for the jury only, may I publish 205D?
Yes.
Where I'm putting my pen, well, let me start with, on the first page, who sent those text messages?
I sent those text messages.
And on what date?
October 5th, 2015.
And where my pen is, what did it say?
It says, I'm going to kill myself.
And what did you send after that?
The procedure of how a abortion is done.
Were those photographs of that?
Yes, it was.
And I'm now turning to the fourth page of 205D. Can you, again, who wrote these? Who sent these text messages on this page 4 of 205D?
I did.
Can you read what you wrote where my pen is pointed?
Yes, I said, I can't go through this with this.
What are you referring to?
An abortion.
And now where my pen is pointed, can you read that?
He nutted in me today.
And now, just for the record, who are you referring to by he in that sentence?
The defendant.
And how about here? Can you read that where my pen is pointed?
But he said we need to look into the abortion stuff because he wants to keep my body right and tight.
And I'm now turning to the 8th page of 205D. Can you read where my pen is pointed?
Now, if I was 18,
And below that?
he wouldn't care about the baby. Speaking that I'm 17.
What did you mean by that?
He had expressed to me that it'd been any other age that he would have wanted to start a family.
And again, just for the record, who wrote these text messages shown on page 8?
I sent these messages.
And there are, I'm showing you page 6 of that. There are some text messages in gray and some in blue. What does the gray indicate regarding who sent those?
Me.
And how about the blue?
That is whom I was speaking to.
And I want to direct your attention to page 5. Do you see where my pen is pointed?
Yes.
What does it say?
It says, tell Mia.
Does that refresh your recollection as to who you were talking to in this text message?
Yes.
Who was it?
It was Malak.
And how do you know that?
Because I told her to tell Mia.
And one line up there it says like FR. What did you mean by that?
Like for real.
FR stands for real?
Yes.
And above there, you also referenced a Plan B pill. What did you mean by a Plan B pill?
That is a pill that you take immediately after someone has ejaculated inside of you.
Now, were you Did you ultimately learn whether or not you were pregnant in October of 2015?
I was not.
You testified earlier about the defendant wanting you to limit communication about him and you with your friends. Do you recall that testimony?
Yes, I do.
Why were you able to communicate with your friend about what was going on between you and the defendant in those text messages?
I would delete the text messages out of my phone, and I had told both of them never to text me unless I was to text them first.
And why did you do that?
Because I knew that the defendant was very controlling about who I spoke to and what I spoke about.
Were there certain times when the defendant spent more time away from you?
Yes,
Where would that occur?
it would just depend on the city that we were in and his schedule.
And were there any cities that you recall where the defendant was less likely to be around you and more likely to be somewhere else?
Not necessarily, no. It was with him.
Okay, in those text messages where you referenced Plan B, what did you understand the purpose of Plan B pill to be?
It would kill whatever possibility of life.
And was the purpose so that you wouldn't continue to be pregnant?
Yes,
Now, in those text messages, do you recall your testimony earlier today about those trips to California?
I do.
And while you were 17, did you take additional trips to California with the defendant?
Yes, I did.
And do you remember where you traveled to?
I do not.
Do you remember what the purpose of your travel was for?
He had shows.
And while you were traveling in California to see the defendant or to accompany the defendant while he performed at his shows, do you recall whether or not any of your sexual contact with the defendant was recorded?
Yes, it was.
What was it recorded with?
An iPad that was in his possession at all times.
And that was when you were 17?
Yes,
What, if anything, do you recall sending your friends on October the 19th of 2015?
I don't recall.
I'm showing the witness what's been marked for identification as Government Exhibit 205F. Do you recognize what's shown in 205F?
I do.
Does that refresh your recollection as to what, if anything, you sent to your friends on October the 19th of 2015?
I do. Yes.
What did you send your friends?
I sent them pictures of me and the defendant
Why did you do that?
because I just needed someone else to have proof just in case anything happened.
And you say you were concerned in case something happened? Do you remember what type of phone you had back then?
At that time, I had an iPhone that the defendant had paid for.
Do you remember when you got that iPhone?
When I left to be homeschooled earlier that year,
And what, if anything, did the defendant say about that iPhone?
he made me put a passcode on it, but he was to know the passcode at all times.
Do you still have that iPhone?
I do not.
Why not?
The defendant broke it.
And I want to direct, well, the government offers 205F.
Any objections?
May I see it? No objection.
May
Okay.
I publish?
Government Exhibit 205F was received in evidence.
May I publish?
Yes.
Whose writing is in gray?
Me.
And right where my pen is, what did you write?
I said, keep these.
What are you referring to?
The photographs that I sent.
Now, where my pen is pointed, that first photograph on 205F, what is that?
That is the defendant.
Who took that picture?
I took that picture.
Where did you take it?
He was actually shooting the cover art for his buffet tour album. Cover art.
And the buffet tour was the one that you were on when you returned to live with the defendant after you started homeschooling. Is that right?
Yes.
And turning to page 2 where my pen is pointing, what is that a photograph of?
That is a photograph that the defendant took of me and him.
Do you recall where you were?
Yes, we were in the fitting room at the studio that he was shooting his cover album.
And I'm sorry, what was the room that you were in?
It was the fitting room where he would change.
And is that you on the right?
Yes, it is.
How old are you?
I was 17 years old.
And how about where my pen is pointing here and here? Who are in these photos?
That is me and the defendant.
Was that taken in the same location?
Yes, it was.
And how about this one where my pen is pointed?
Yes, that is. I'm sorry. And how about, yeah, that is me and the defendant.
Same place?
Yes.
And finally, I'm going to turn to the last page. Where my pen is pointed, who is that in the photograph? Who is that a photograph of?
Me and the defendant.
Do you remember where that was taken?
It was the same day.
He appears to be in different clothing. How's that?
Oh, no. He had changed his outfit.
And was that part of the photo shoot that was going on?
Yeah. He had multiple looks.
Now, do you recall where you were on November the 14th of 2015 and where you were going?
I do not.
The government, I'm showing you what's been marked for identification as 205I. Can you take a look at that and let us know if that refreshes your recollection as to where you had been and where you were going?
Yes.
Where had you been?
I had been to LA and Vegas.
Do you recall why you were in Los Angeles and Las Vegas?
Yes, he had shows.
And where were you going?
Back to Chicago.
And can you take another look at that?
Yeah, we were in Chicago. Sorry.
Where were you going?
To New York.
When were you scheduled to leave for New York?
The next day.
And what is the date of these?
November 14th, 2015.
The government offers 205I.
No objection.
Okay, those are in evidence.
By the way, did you wear glasses back then?
I did.
What type of glasses? Can you describe the glasses that you wore?
I had a few large frames and I had a few small rectangular sized frames.
Was the defendant aware of your friend Malak, who you exchanged those text messages with?
Objection.
He was.
Are you objecting?
Yes.
Oh, can you do it so I can hear you? Thanks. Objection is overruled.
Geddes.
Geddes? Line 12.
Was the defendant aware of your friend Malak?
He was.
What, if anything, did you tell him about your friend Malak?
I told him that she was my cousin.
Why did you tell the defendant? Was Malak your cousin?
She is not.
Why did you tell the defendant that she was your cousin?
I felt that if I told him that she was a family member, that he would allow me to stay in communication with her.
And I'm showing you what's been marked for identification as 205J. Do you recognize what's shown in 205J?
Yes, I do.
What is that?
It's a video from my best friend, Mia.
And how did you react when you received that video?
I was anxious
How had you received the video?
through text message
And what about receiving the video made you anxious?
because the defendant had the passwords to my phone and he would check my phone and he didn't really allow me to talk to them.
And what, if anything, how did you respond to your friend after you received that video?
I told her that she couldn't do that
And why did you tell your friend that she couldn't do that?
because he checks my phone.
The government offers 205J.
No objection.
I'm sorry, I was letting her in. I apologize. What page are we on?
896.
Okay, thank you. We're on 896, Judge.
Line 19. Okay,
Can we publish this, please?
go ahead. Jury only.
Yes, jury only, please. I want to direct your attention to this, where my pen is pointed. What is shown there?
Guys, could we hold off a second because I'm trying to get them to catch up to where we are? Can you please tell them what they are? 896, line what?
897, line 6.
Line 6, 897. You got it?
Got it.
Okay, good. All right. Sorry about that, guys. I apologize.
It's a video of my friend Mia.
And where my pen is now pointed, what is there?
It is a text message from me.
And what did you say in your text message? Can you read it?
You know, y'all can't do that because he checks my phone.
And when you say y'all can't do that, who were you referring to? Who was the you in that?
Malak and Mia.
And were those your friends from high school?
Yes,
And when you said he checked my phone, who was the he in that sentence?
the defendant.
And turning to the second page, can you read this blue entry where my pen is pointed?
What are he gonna say if he sees the video?
And how did you respond right below?
He's gonna be like, why is that your BF when you said you were texting your cousin?
Who did you mean by BF there? What did you mean by BF there?
Best friend.
And what were you saying in this particular text message?
Meaning that he only allowed me to talk to Malak because I had told her sick that she was family. However, Mia, he did not want me communicating with her.
And can you read? I turned the page to page 3. Can you read the response on page 3?
I just don't want to have to block your number because he thinks I'm being immature. That's why I deleted apps and everyone's number because I gotta show some age now that I'm with a 48-year-old man. So doing so has made me grow out of a lot of young habits. Just don't want to ruin the one shot I have at being able to talk to you.
And when you reference a 48-year-old, who are you referring to?
The defendant. The defendant.
And finally, I'm showing you what has been marked for identification as 205M. Do you recognize what's shown in 205M?
Yes, I do.
And I'm going to turn the page to page 2. Can you take a look at that for a moment?
Yes, I do.
Generally speaking, what is shown in this particular exhibit?
Basically, me texting and saying that certain things that they can't do because it would get me caught up.
And what is it that you didn't want your friends to do?
They couldn't text me or reach out to me like without me doing so first.
And when you said it would get you caught up, what did you mean by that?
Meaning, like, I would get into a, mm, it would cause an altercation between me and the defendant.
And turning to page 1, can you tell what the dates of these communications were?
January 8th, oh, I'm sorry. January 8th, 2016.
The government offers 205M.
Any objection?
No.
All right. That comes into evidence.
And just, I'm turning to page 2.
Is this just the jury, just for the jury?
Yes, just for the jury.
Make sure you let me know.
I'm sorry, yes. Can you read what you wrote? Is the gray text messages that you sent?
Yes.
Can you read what you wrote there?
Texting you will get me caught up.
And where my text message, or I'm sorry, where my pen is pointing now, what does that say?
You gotta learn how to use code, baby girl.
That's what a baby G is?
Yes.
And what did you mean by that?
Meaning that there was a specific way that she would be able to talk to me. And if it wasn't like everyday stuff, then she couldn't text me.
And by everyday stuff, what are you referring to?
Like if it wasn't just saying, how are you? Or how are your nails? Or how is your hair? If it wasn't what he would call it, innocent stuff, then I wasn't able to talk to them about anything personal.
And who are you referring to when you said he?
The defendant.
You testified earlier that you were concerned because if the defendant had learned about these text communications, there would be an altercation. What did you mean by that?
In 2015, the defendant had introduced me into what he called chastising.
And what are chastising, or what do you mean by chastising?
Spankings.
Okay, we'll talk about that in a moment. Now, in the beginning of the time that you spent with the defendant, what, if anything, did the defendant tell you about other females in his life?
The defendant did tell me that he had multiple women and girlfriends.
How did you react to that?
I was okay with that.
What, if anything, did you eventually learn about his relationships with those other females?
I had learned that they were actually all living together.
How did you learn?
I have learned from the defendant.
In what way?
When we were in Atlanta and anywhere that we would be, at the studio in Atlanta, he had a guest house in which they all lived there.
And by they, who are you generally referring to?
Um,
Are you referring to the other females that you just mentioned?
yes,
Do you recall when you learned that the defendant was living with other females?
I do. Yes,
When was it?
it was in Atlanta.
And approximately how long had you been spending time with the defendant at the time that you learned that he was living with other females?
It was in 2015.
Do you remember how long it was, though, that you had been with the defendant?
Probably about 4 or 5 months.
And how old were you there?
I was 17.
And by then, were you still having sexual contact with the defendant?
I was, yes.
Without using any full names, who did you learn was living with the defendant at the time?
Hmm. Neek, Juice, Joy, and V.
I'm showing the witness only what's been marked for identification as Government Exhibit 69B. Do you recognize 69B?
Yes, I do.
What is 69B?
This is Neek.
The government offers 69B.
No objection.
Okay, that's in evidence.
May I publish?
To the jury only.
No, you can publish. And I'm showing the witness only what's been marked for identification as 69C. And before I do you know Nick's first and last name?
I do.
I'm showing the witness only what's been marked for identification as 69C. On top, is that the same photograph that was just shown in 69B?
It is, yes.
And below, there's a name. Is that the name that you know to be the first and last name of Neek?
It is, yes.
The government offers 69C and would like to ask the court to publish it only to the jury.
No objection.
Okay.
I'm showing the witness only what's been marked for identification as 52B, as in boy. Do you recognize what's shown in 52B?
I do.
Who is that?
That's Juice.
The government offers 52B.
No objection.
Judge.
In evidence.
May I publish?
Yes.
And I'm now showing the witness only what's been marked for identification as 52C. And before I do you know the first and last name of Juice?
I do.
I am showing you 52C. On top, is that the same photograph shown in 52B?
It is.
And below that, is that the first and last name that you know of Juice, who is shown in 52B and C?
It is.
The government offers 52C and asks that it be published to the jury only.
Any objection?
No.
I'm showing the witness only what's been marked for identification as Government Exhibit 72. Do you recognize 72?
I do.
Who is 72?
V.
Government offers 72.
No objection. That's in evidence.
May we publish?
Yes.
And I'm showing the witness only what's been marked for identification as Government Exhibit 78. Do you recognize 78?
I do.
Who is that?
Joy.
And do you know the government offers 78?
Any objection?
No objection. Okay, that's in evidence.
May I publish?
It is to go to everybody?
Yes.
Okay.
And do you know Joy's first and last name?
I do.
I'm showing the witness only what's been marked for identification in 78A. And where my pen is that the same photograph that was just shown in Government Exhibit 78?
It is.
And below that, is that the first and last name of Joy?
Yes.
The government offers 78A and asks that it be published to the jury only.
No objection. Okay, that's in.
Now, you testified earlier that you found out that the defendant was living with multiple females about 4 to 5 months in.
Yes.
How old were you when that happened?
I was 17.
And so when you say 4 to 5 months, do you mean 4 to 5 months from when you started, when you met the defendant?
Objection.
What did you mean by 4 to 5 months?
Well, I had initially met all of them from time to time. However, I did not know that they were his girlfriends that he was living with.
When did you learn, though, that he was living with them in relation to when you first met the defendant?
About 4 to 5 months after meeting him.
Now, did you continue to spend time with the defendant after you learned that he was living with these other females?
I did.
What, if any, rules did the defendant set with respect to how you should interact with these other females?
He told me to listen to whatever they said because it was basically coming from him.
And how much, if any, information did you understand you should be sharing with these individuals, these women that he was living with?
I could not share any of my personal information with them.
And how did you know that?
The defendant had told me not to.
Now, through your testimony today, you've testified about certain rules that the defendant wanted you to follow. What, if anything, would happen if you did not follow one of those rules?
I would be chastised,
And what do you mean, again, by chastising?
meaning that he would spank me.
Who used the word chastising?
The defendant.
Were there other things that might happen if you didn't follow one of the defendant's rules?
Yes.
What?
Sometimes, occasionally, I would be left in the room or my phone would be taken or something. I would receive a punishment if it was a drastic rule that I had broken.
I want to start with chastisement or spankings. Do you recall the first time that the defendant spanked you?
I do.
Where do you recall that happening?
It was in Atlanta, Georgia.
How old were you?
I was 17.
And what do you remember happening?
I remember him saying that he has protocol and rules that need to be followed and that a chastising was only to help me be better and to remember the small things, just in case I was not remembering the things to do.
And did you know what the defendant meant when he used the word chastising?
No, I did not.
How did you learn?
I asked him what it meant or what it was.
And what did he say?
He said that it was just a spanking to help me remember.
And I think you testified that it was in Atlanta the first time that the defendant spanked you. Is that correct?
Yes,
Where in Atlanta were you?
we were in a hotel. I believe the Hyatt.
And what, if anything, do you remember about that particular hotel room?
I remember that we were in a room and the number was 407. And I thought that it was so bizarre because my area code for my cell phone number was 407.
So that was the number of the hotel room?
Yes,
Now, do you recall what rule, or do you recall what prompted the defendant to tell you about these chastisements and to spank you that day in room 407 in Atlanta?
I excuse me. I had did something that he didn't like and he said that it was time to teach me about the protocols and chastising.
As you sit here today, do you know what it was that you did that the defendant did not like?
I do not recall.
Can you describe specifically what the defendant did when he spanked you?
He did make me take off my underwear. I was wearing a dress and he did spank me 3 times. Open palm.
And how were you positioned when he spanked you?
I was facing the left and I was standing up and my butt in my face. I mean, my butt was facing his left palm.
How often did the defendant spank you during the time that you spent with him?
I would get chastised nearly every 2 or 3 days.
And when you say chastise, what are you referring to?
Spankings.
You testified that the first time the defendant spanked you 3 times. Did you did the number of spankings change from a particular incident to another incident?
Yes, they did.
How, if at all, would you know how many spankings the defendant was going to give you?
He would always tell you beforehand and to prepare.
What would he do?
He would tell me how many spankings I would have to take, and he would just tell me to just be ready.
Other than spankings, did the defendant ever physically hurt you?
Yes, he did.
Do you recall the first time that happened?
The first time that happened was probably in Atlanta, Georgia.
And let me back up one moment regarding your testimony about the spanking. You testified the first time that you had taken off your underwear. Is that correct?
Yes.
Were those spankings that happened subsequently by the defendant, did you always have your underwear off?
Yes.
Can you describe to the jury how hard the defendant would spank you?
Yes. He would leave bruises and sometimes like it would make my skin tear.
Okay, hold on, y'all. I'm sorry. How do you get bruises from somebody's hand and you make your skin tear? I'm sorry. Sorry, I didn't mean to cut in. Sorry.
You don't. Not with an open hand.
I'm sorry. Okay. Your skin tears with your hand with a hand. Okay. All right. Sorry.
How did it make you feel?
Terrible.
Did it hurt?
It would, yes.
Before I interrupted you, you were about to testify about the first time that you remember the defendant physically hurting you. Other than these spankings, and I think you testified that you were in Atlanta. Do you recall what started that particular incident?
He had received a text message.
Did you see that text message?
He showed me, yes.
Who did the defendant tell you the text message was from?
He said that it was from a man by the name of Divine.
And did you see the text message itself?
Yes, I did. Yes.
What was the text message?
It was my name and a rat emoji.
Bam. There it is.
Whew. At the time that text message or that you saw that text message, did you know who Divine was?
I did not.
What happened after the defendant received that text message?
He had taken my phone and asked me who had I been talking to.
And backing up one moment, you testified that this happened in Atlanta. Do you recall how old you were?
I was 17.
What, if anything, did the defendant say when he took your phone?
He said that I had 30 seconds to be honest and to puke. And if I left out any small detail, that it would go up in that room.
Now, when you said he told you that you had 30 seconds to be honest and puke, what did you mean by that?
Meaning, like, to tell him whom I had been talking to and to be completely honest with him.
And when you said that you had 30 seconds to do that, or it would go up in that room, what do you mean by that?
Meaning that there would be no chastising, meaning that it would really be a physical altercation.
How did you respond?
I was honest, but I did leave out details, and he did begin to physically hit me.
What were you honest? What did you tell the defendant?
I told him that I had been talking to Mia.
Who is Mia again?
Mia is she was my best friend at the time.
You said that you left out details. What did you what do you recall leaving out?
I told him I had left out that we had been intimate and that I had expressed that to Mia.
I'm sorry. So what did you not tell the defendant?
I did not tell him that we were being intimate,
That who was being intimate?
me and the defendant.
Okay. Who had you told that you and the defendant were intimate?
I had told my best friend Mia.
Okay, and did you leave out the fact that you had told Mia that you and the defendant had been intimate?
Yes, I did.
How did the defendant respond?
He began to hit me.
What about after that?
He continually began to hit me, and in between it, he would ask me, "Are you ready to be honest?" And I would say, "I don't know what you're talking about." And he would continue to hit me.
How was he hitting you?
He was hitting me with his open palm and with a closed palm.
Where on your body was he hitting you?
Objection to the leading.
Well, where where he hitting you is not leading.
On your body is.
Well, it's not overruled.
He hit me all over. He would hit me in my face, in my arms, on my butt, all over my body.
What happened?
I continued to not be honest with him, and then he went in his closet and grabbed one of his Air Force One shoes.
What, if anything, did he do with one of his shoes?
He continued to hit me until I finally broke.
Hold on. I want to show y'all something. Tasha, you messy bitch. That was from Jane Doe number 5. Sorry.
Wow. Okay.
Which makes me
What?
want to go see what the Friday show talked about. I'm sorry, I'm curious.
Okay. What did he use to hit you then?
I'm sorry.
13.
An Air Force One size 12.
Do you remember where on your body he hit you?
He hit me all over.
With the shoe?
Yes.
How, if at all, did you react when the defendant was hitting you with his shoe?
I was running from him in our master bedroom in Atlanta. I remember we were in the restroom, and somehow we ended all the way in the master bedroom. And I was trying to run from him and fight back, but I'm literally no match.
How tall are you?
I'm 4'11".
Do you remember how much you weighed back then in 2015?
I was about 98 pounds.
How tall is the defendant?
He is 6 foot.
How did that end? What happened?
After that, he and I admitted to everything, and I did tell him that I had told Mia that we had been intimate, and he told me how we would fix it. And then he told Juice to come in the bedroom and he told her to run your sister a bathwater.
Now, you said that the defendant said how you would fix it. What did the defendant say to do?
He then told me to text Mia and told me exactly what to say to Mia in the text message.
Did you do that?
Yes, I did. Yes.
You said the Juice then ran a bath for you. Is that correct?
Yes.
Where did that happen?
It happened in our master bedroom.
And when you say your master bedroom, what are you referring to? What residence? What house?
The big house.
In Atlanta?
Yes.
Do you know where Juice was when the defendant was assaulting you?
I do not. No.
Do you know where the defendant went when... Did Juice in fact run your bath?
Yes, she did.
Do you know where the defendant went when Juice came back and ran your bath?
No, I do not.
Did you eventually meet an individual named Divine?
Years later, yes.
Do you remember approximately when you met him?
I met him, I believe, in the year of 2020.
What, if anything, did Divine show you?
Divine had showed me that same text, which was the last text that he had sent the defendant.
And what was in the text?
It was my name with a rat emoji.
You testified that at times the defendant had you stay in a room. Is that right?
Yes.
Do you remember the first time that the defendant had you stay in a room?
It was in 2015.
What happened?
It was in the previous evidence that you had showed where he said that I could not leave the room.
Can you describe what location that was?
I do not recall, but I do know that we were on the West Coast.
Okay. Do you remember what prompted him to tell you that you couldn't leave that room?
No, I just had to express that. I'm sorry. No, I just had to express that it was a rule of his.
Okay, so let me back up. I think you testified earlier that one of the ways, if you broke a rule, one thing that the defendant sometimes did was had you stay in a room. Is that correct?
Yes. Yes.
Did there come a time when the defendant, in fact, made you stay in a room because you had broken a rule?
Yes.
Do you remember the first time that that happened?
Yes.
Where did that happen?
Chicago.
Where in Chicago?
At the studio on Ohio Street.
And do you remember what led to that?
Yes.
What happened?
I had gone shopping with Juice, and she had tried to convince me to get sweats in a size large, and I had got them in an extra small. And he had told me that anything that came from her was coming from him, and I didn't listen to her. Kitties.
The defendant? And who was the her in that sentence?
Okay. Juice.
Do you recall whether or not what size sweats you bought that day?
I did buy extra small from Hollister.
What is Hollister?
Hollister is a clothing store for like a lot of teens.
What happened? Do you remember where you first went after you went shopping that day?
Yes, we went back to the studio.
The studio on Ohio Street?
Yes.
What happened when you got back to the studio?
I had tried on my clothes like I usually do after I was done shopping, and I tried on my sweats, and
Who
Who, if anyone, was present for when you tried on your sweats?
Him and Juice were present.
The defendant and Juice?
Yeah.
What happened?
He had saw the sweats on me and he wasn't happy. And he then said, "Didn't Juice tell you to get a size large?" And I said, "Yes."
You said the defendant wasn't happy. What made you believe the defendant wasn't happy?
Because I had went against what Juice had told me to do.
What, if anything, did the defendant do or say, though, that made you think he wasn't happy?
He he did in fact leave me in that room.
When you say he did, in fact, leave you in that room, what are you talking about?
I was in the 5-star at the time and he basically felt that I felt like I didn't do anything wrong, and so as a punishment, he said I could not leave out of the room until I admitted to what I had done.
You mentioned the 5 star. What do you mean by the 5 star?
The 5-star was a room inside of the whole Ohio Street studio, which he would have parties in on the weekend.
And when you were showing, when you were trying the clothes that you had purchased in front of the defendant and Juice, where in the studio were you?
What line? I just lost my space. I'm so sorry. Oh,
7.
we were in the 5-star.
And how did the defendant express to you that he wanted you to stay in the 5 star room?
He told me that I cannot leave out of this room until I admitted what I should have done.
What happened then?
I didn't leave outside of the room for about 3 days to 4 days.
What Where was the defendant when you were in the room?
I don't know.
Did you see him?
What do you mean?
While you were in the room for 3 or 4 days, what, if any, contact did you have with the defendant?
Oh, he would come in and he would check on me and ask me, was I ready to be honest? And I was it expressed that I didn't have anything to be honest about, and I would leave again, and he would leave again.
What, if anything, did you understand the defendant wanted you to do while you were in that 5 star room at the Ohio Street studio?
He wanted me to admit that I should have listened to Juice and that I should have gotten the sweats in a size large.
What, if anything, did you eat while you were in the room?
Food was brought to me, and I would know because they would knock on the door.
And when you say they would knock at the door, what specifically did you hear?
I would hear a knock on the door.
And what, if anything, would you do when you heard a knock at the door?
The defendant would always tell me anytime I heard a knock to wait 30 seconds before opening the door to give whoever it was time to leave.
So, as you sit here today, do you know who brought you food while you were in the 5 star room for 3 to 4 days?
I do not.
Did there come a time, well, you testified that you were in there for 3 to 4 days. What, if anything, happened that allowed you to finally leave the room?
I had admitted that I was wrong and that I should have listened to Juice.
How did you admit that you were wrong?
I had physically told him when he had came in the room.
How did he respond once you told him that you were wrong?
He was happy. And objection. Court.
Well,
Court,
when you say he was happy, how did you know that?
because afterwards I immediately left the room and he let me go into the studio with him.
Now, to be clear, the room where you were staying for the 3 to 4 days, was there a lock on the door?
There's not.
And what, if anything, did you think would happen if you did walk out of the room?
I would get in trouble even more.
And what did you think? What do you mean by that?
I didn't know what would happen, but I just knew that I would probably get in even more trouble if I did choose to leave out of the room.
You testified earlier about a time in which the defendant used his shoe to hit you. Do you recall that?
Yes, I do.
Aside from spankings, did you ever see the defendant physically hit or assault another of those females that were living with him?
Yes, I have.
What did you see personally? What did you see?
I have seen him slap his other living girlfriends, open palm. I have seen him drag them by their hair. I have seen him punch them in their face and all over their bodies. And I have also seen him hit them with objects.
What objects have you seen a defendant hit them with?
I've seen the defendant also use shoes, and also once I did see him use a cord of some sort.
How did that make you feel?
I felt like I needed to listen even more because that could also happen to me.
Ms. Geddes, just whenever you're ready, if it's a good time to break, I just want to give the jurors their afternoon break.
We can take a break right now.
Okay. So, folks, we'll break for 15 minutes or so. Please don't talk about the case at all, but we'll see you in a few minutes. Jury exits. All right. Everybody can sit down. All right. Anything before we break? Your Honor. Just relating to the government eliciting testimony. I can't hear you. As it relates to the government eliciting testimony regarding Mr. Kelly's prior criminal proceeding, right? We will consent to the government actually asking him about it being a prior proceeding, a prior court proceeding. I mean, I can't remember I'm going to have to go back and look at what my ruling was at that time that you didn't take advantage of it, but I think it should be the same ruling. I mean, the reasoning is the same. Well, I think your ruling was with another witness, and at that time, you indicated that the door was opened. There was going to be a door opening with respect to this witness, and it wasn't elicited at that time, and the government did not go back and redirect and ask the witness anything about it. I think she tried, and I sustained the objection because it was beyond the scope. That's my recollection.
I know.
Well, if you will call it a prior proceeding, I mean, the point is in addition to. It's not just because I made the ruling with respect to another witness. It's because it's relevant to establish why she did what she did. So I'll permit it for that purpose, but you can refer to it as a prior proceeding.
But I think, Your Honor, you previously had advised that there's already been testimony in the record about a prior court proceeding. Here, the witness, I think, needs to explain that the reason why she was not truthful about her age was because the defendant was on trial for a crime involving a minor.
Well, you can call it, you can say, I don't think you'll have a problem that there was testimony, that there was a trial, and you can say that the subject was his, what did we agree on before? You don't have to say it's a criminal trial. I mean, it's just not necessary.
A trial?
It's a trial involving conduct with a minor. I would object to that, Your Honor. I think that there's a question. I think that if there's a question asked, we're in order for the witness to, I guess, give what she thinks is the rationale for her saying that she was 18. Well, there was a prior court proceeding. That's what I just said, right? But not regarding a minor. No, no, we are, no, I mean, the whole reason why, just the fact that it's a prior proceeding doesn't really say a whole lot. But that's what her concern was, that it was because she was also a minor. Otherwise, it doesn't matter.
What page and line we on? I'm sorry.
928. 928, line 17. I mean 18. Janet
Please
is
don't.
talking to herself.
I'm sorry. Please don't put names that's not real name of the judge. Please, guys.
Mr. Cannick?
928.
928, line 18.
Okay. I'll take half of it with her. I would object to that, Your Honor. I think that there is a question asked where, in order for witness to, I guess, give what she thinks is the rationale for her saying that she was 18. Well, there was a prior court proceeding.
We were on 928, line 18.
Oh, line 18. Judge, I mean, do you plan on to cross-examine her about it like you did the last witness about why she lied to him about how old she was? Oh, she's not gonna do the other part.
I didn't focus on that with this.
I understand.
As I recall from the 302s, she's saying that it was her parents who told her to tell him that she was 18. Nothing to do with her. It wasn't her thought. It was her parents' thought, her mother's thought.
Mm-mm.
Well, let's do this. You know, you can do the examination with her and just in an excess of caution. I'll do what I did the last time. If you question her about that and the door is open, I'll permit the government to bring out some information about that. And it will be really just the same thing. So you can continue the examination when you do your cross. If you challenge her on that, as you did the last witness, I'll let the government ask what they're going to ask.
Very well.
So, Your Honor, I may go back and let the witness know that I previously told them.
All right.
But with respect to when I asked her about what, if anything, the defendant said about the reason for the letters, she will answer that the defendant told her that it was because his attorneys told him to do it. I assume she had that statement.
She really said that?
No, I hadn't asked this witness.
But she said something about talking to lawyers, didn't she?
She did.
I think it's fine that he's talking to lawyers. I don't understand counsels to be objecting to that. The discrete objection is referring to the prior criminal procedures, which I did preclude inquiry on and I committed it. And the last time, because the defense quite clearly opened the door to it, it's a fair point that he hasn't really opened the door on this one because he hadn't had a chance to ask her any question. So let's do it the same way we did with the last time. If you need to confer with the witness just to straighten that out, Go ahead and do it. All right. See you in a few minutes. All right. Do we have everyone we need to have? Okay. Let the jury get the jury. All right. Are we ready to resume the direct examination? Go ahead.
Thank you.
The witness is reminded that she is under oath.
Yes, thank you.
You testified before we broke about a time when the defendant told you to stay in a room in the Ohio Street studio. Other than the Ohio Street studio, were there other occasions where the defendant made you stay for periods of time?
Yes.
What other locations do you recall the defendant made you stay for periods of time as a result of violating one of the defendant's rules in his eyes?
Aside from the studio that he later had in the Atlanta house and the tour bus.
You mentioned the studio that the defendant later had. Do you remember where that studio was?
It was Jasmine Street
The
or
studio was located on Justine
Justine
Street.
Street. I'm sorry. Yes,
The studio was located on Justine Street.
yes,
In what city?
Chicago.
You also mentioned the tour bus. Do you remember a time when the defendant told you to stay on the tour bus?
Yes, I do.
Do you remember where you were located, where the tour bus was at the time?
Atlanta, Georgia.
And do you recall what led the defendant telling you that you need to stay on the tour bus?
I had broken one of his rules and I did not admit to breaking one of the rules.
Do you remember the particular rule that you broke that day?
I do not.
Do you remember approximately when it was that the defendant had you stay on the tour bus in Atlanta?
It was for about 3 days.
And do you remember approximately when, either in terms of your age or in terms of the time frame this happened?
I believe that this happened in 2016 or 2017. I don't recall.
And what, if anything, did you do while you were on the tour bus?
There wasn't nothing much that I could do but just wait for him to come on.
And what, if anything, did you understand the defendant wanted you to do while you were on the tour bus?
Objection. Well, did he tell you what you were supposed to do while you were on the tour bus? It was just a punishment to not be around him.
Okay. Next question.
Do you recall whether you had food that time in Atlanta when you were on the tour bus for how long did you say it was?
About 3 days.
Do you recall whether or not you had food while you were on the tour bus for about 3 days?
I did, yes.
And how did you receive the food?
There was a fridge and a microwave, and occasionally, if he ate, they would bring it and leave it underneath the curtain.
And when you say curtain, what are you referring to?
The tour bus. There was a curtain in the front where no one could see inside of the back of the tour bus.
And you said that they would bring it to you. Did you see who was bringing the food?
Never.
How would you know that the food was ready or that there was food for you?
Because I would hear them put it underneath the curtain, and then I would hear the tour bus shut and lock.
And just to be clear again, was the tour bus locked from the inside?
I don't know. I never tried to open it. It's always been unlocked getting on and off from me.
Okay, but when you were on the tour bus that day for a period of time, you didn't try to open it? Is that what you're saying?
Yes, I did not.
Now, to your knowledge, were any of the other females who were living with the defendant at the time ever subjected to the same punishment, where they had to stay in a room or a location for a period of days on account of the defendant believing that they had violated a rule?
Yes,
How did you know that?
because they would not be around for a few days and we would just know not to ask
Not to ask whom.
him, like where they were,
And again, him, who are you referring to?
the defendant.
Do you recall what happened on December the 28th of 2015?
I do not.
I'm showing the witness only what's been marked for identification is 935B. Do you recognize what's shown in 935B?
Uh, I do. Yes,
Does that refresh your recollection as to what, if anything, happened on December the 28th of 2015?
it does. Yes.
And that day, December the 28th, how old were you?
What year is this? 2015?
Yes.
I was 17.
And when you were turning 18,
December
and
30th.
when were you? Okay. What, if anything, do you recall happening on December the 28th of 2015?
Me and the defendant had gotten into an argument.
And do you recall the nature of the argument?
Yes, I do.
What was it about?
He had expressed to me that he didn't celebrate holidays because he no longer had his family. And I felt if he did not want to celebrate the holidays, I could have been home with my family celebrating.
Did you tell the defendant that?
I did, yes.
How did the defendant respond?
He was upset with me.
What, if anything, did the defendant do or say towards you?
He did make me leave, stay in the room.
Do you recall what room you were in?
This was at the studio.
Where was the studio?
Justine.
And was that in downtown Chicago?
Yeah.
In Government Exhibit 935B, generally speaking, what are those? What is that?
It is a text message of what I sent my best friend at the time.
On what date?
December 29th.
The government offers 935B.
Any objections?
No.
All right. That's in evidence.
May I publish, please?
Yes. Is this jury only or?
No, it can go beyond the jury. Can you, starting from the bottom, can you read the text message starting from the bottom and moving up? And just to be clear, who wrote these text messages?
I sent these messages.
Okay, can you read what's shown on 935B, beginning where my pen is pointing?
Yes. I just felt to rebel, so I did. And then I was like, can I take a shower? Can I take a shower? And he was like, no. You're going to stay in the room until you tell me why you.
And there are three dots after that. What does that represent?
There was more to the text message.
Just not shown on this particular.
Yes.
And reading above that, what did you write?
First of all, I never had an attitude. You always think someone mad.
And above that?
And then I kept calling and texting him over and over.
And above that?
And he was like, no, you text me why you had an attitude first.
In those text messages, when you refer to he, who are you referring to?
The defendant.
And in that first text message that you read, the one on the bottom where my pen is pointing, where it says, And he was like, no, you're going to stay in the room until you tell me why. And then it continues. What did you mean by that?
I had expressed to him that I had an attitude because if he didn't want to celebrate Christmas, I could have been home.
What did you mean by saying that? He was like, no, you're going to stay in the room.
Meaning that I could not leave the room until I apologized for having the attitude.
Do you remember what room within the Justine Street studio you were in?
The control room.
What, if anything, did you understand that? What, if anything, did you do while you were in that room?
There was nothing in that room for me to do. There was only a TV in that room.
What, if
Yes.
anything, what, if any, communication did you have with the defendant?
I did have my phone. However, he was ignoring all of my calls and texts that I had until I had admitted why I had attitude.
How would you, did you eventually admit that you had an attitude?
I did, yes.
Did you believe you, in fact, had an attitude?
I did not. No.
How did you admit to the defendant that you had an attitude? How would you convey that to the defendant?
I would have to have been really remorseful, and I would have had to have fed his ego.
Specifically, what would you have done to convey that to the defendant?
I would have to have said exactly what he wanted to hear
Who did you say that to?
to the defendant.
To his face?
Yes.
Did you ever write letters?
Yes, I did.
What letters would you write?
I would write many letters.
When you were in a room as a result of violating a rule, would you ever write letters to the defendant?
Yes, I would. If I did not have my phone, yes.
Were there times when you were in a room without your phone?
Yes.
Why would you be in a room without your phone?
Because he would take it as a punishment.
What would you write in the letters?
It would have to be an apology for a rule that I had broken.
What, if anything, would you do with the letter that you wrote?
I would have to give it to him, and he would basically read it.
How would you give it to the defendant?
I would just give him the sheet of paper, and sometimes he would make me read it in front of him, or he would leave with it and then come back at another time.
Do you recall an occasion where your first letter was not sufficient?
Yes, I do.
What happened?
If it was attitude in the letter, then I would still be stuck in the room and I would have to rewrite the letter.
Who determined if there was attitude in the letter?
The defendant.
I'm showing. May I approach, Your Honor?
Yes.
I'm showing the witness what's been marked for identification as Government Exhibit 926. Do you recognize what's shown in Government Exhibit 926?
Yes, I do.
Generally speaking, what are they?
That is pictures of the studio on 209 North Justine.
Now, do you recognize the time frame for which these photos were taken?
Yes, I do.
When were they approximately taken? When do they appear to show? What time period?
We had already left the studio.
And what year was that?
2019.
And just to be clear, where was the Justine Street studio?
209 North Justine Street, Chicago, Illinois.
And all of the photographs contained in the Government Exhibit 926 fair and accurate photos of how the studio appeared at times when you were there?
No, some are, not all.
Have you seen though the studio look the way that it looks in these photos?
Yes, I have.
The government offers 926.
Objection. Well, I think you got a specific which one are fair and accurate recommendation, which one aren't. At least that's the way I understand the witness testimony.
Let me.
Is that your objection? Yes, Your Honor.
Sorry, I didn't hear your objection.
It's not just me. Why don't you just take the exhibit to her and have her show you which ones are not fair and accurate representation? That might be faster way.
I can do that. Just let me ask one more preliminary question.
Okay.
You said that there were certain things that were different in these photos that than some of the time you were in the Justine Street studio.
Yes.
What was different generally?
The bedroom. They actually all had beds in them, in which we had his workers remove them.
Okay. Aside from the type of furniture in there, are these photos
Everything else is accurate.
so the structure is the same
Yes.
as it was when you were there?
Yes.
Is it fair to say that there are just some photos where the furniture is a little bit different?
Yes.
All right. May I approach?
Well, with the proviso, if that's the only difference, do you object to the photos going in? Yes. Okay. I guess you can go now through all of them all.
All right. There are different page numbers, so I'll refer to the page numbers.
Why don't you just give them to the witness? Just go through and tell us which one is different.
Okay. So this is the master bedroom that was renovated, and it did not look like this initially.
Didn't look like this what?
Meaning that this was a bedroom that we had gotten renovated.
Right?
So this is what it looked like.
So that's correct, right?
Yes.
Just go through what the ones that are not. Are
Are
they numbered? Well, they are numbered. Yes, they are numbered. So when you get to the one that doesn't fairly and accurately represent the way it looked, tell us what number it is and why is it and not a fair and accurate representation.
okay. Number 16 is not accurate. There was a bedroom in this room.
So this isn't missing furniture?
Yes.
All right. So that's 16.
18 is also missing furniture.
Okay.
19 is the same picture as 18, just a different angle.
And when you say it's missing furniture, what kind of furniture is it missing?
It was bunk beds in that room.
All right.
And 20 is missing furniture. Geddes.
Geddes?
And what furniture is missing from that one?
A bedroom.
Meaning bedroom furniture?
Yes, a master bed was in there. And also 25 is missing furniture. There was a bed in there as well.
Aside from that, are those fair and accurate photographs of how the studio on Justine Street appeared?
Yes.
And the photographs shown on pages 16, 18, 19, 20, and 25, are those fair and accurate photographs of the room themselves with the fact just that the furniture is different?
Yes. The government offers. Oh,
The
yes.
government offers government exhibit 926.
Any objection? I just have to see them. Well, have copies of them, don't you? No.
Here.
Thanks. Just one question of why there. Why? Sure. When were these pictures taken?
These pictures were taken after we had already left the studio.
And when you say we, who are you talking about?
Me, the defendant, and Joy.
Do you have an approximate if this is very hard to hear you. Do you have approximately as to what year that was?
2019, meaning even though he had the studio, he was behind in bills. So we had.
That's not what I'm asking you. I'm asking you specifically, was this in 2019?
She
She answered it. She said it was in 2019. All right. Any more questions? No, I'm good. Any objection? No objection. All right. They're in evidence.
I'm showing the witness. I'm showing everyone what's in evidence is Government Exhibit 926. I'm going to show you page 29. Do you recognize what's shown in Government Exhibit 29?
Yes,
What is that?
this is the control room.
And at the time on December the 28th of 2015, where the defendant told you to stay in a room for a period of days, where were you told to stay?
In the control room.
And what, if anything, was in the control room when you were there in 2015?
It looked very similar to this, and it had two different chairs, which were more like day chairs, and a black couch in there.
And if I turn the page to page 31 of that same exhibit, can you see what's shown there?
Yes,
What is that?
that is the black couch that was put in that studio in 2015.
Okay. And is that just another angle from within the control room?
Yes, it is.
Before lunch, I believe you testified that the defendant told you to delete all your social media accounts. Do you recall that testimony?
Yes, I do.
Did you follow that rule?
I did not.
At any point, did the defendant learn that you had not deleted your social media account?
There was once I was actually on Snapchat and he had walked
20.
into the room.
It was on 20.
Oh, yes.
How did the defendant learn?
Okay. There was once I was actually on Snapchat and he walked into the room,
Where were you when this happened?
the control room.
The same control room that I just showed you?
Yes.
In the studio on Justine Street?
Yes.
What, if anything, were you doing when the defendant entered the room?
I believe that I was making a video. I was in the middle of working out.
Do you remember how old you were when this happened?
I was 17.
And you said you were making a video.
Uh-huh.
Can you explain what you were making a video of?
It was just a selfie video of myself in which I had planned to send to my immediate friends.
And what application were you using?
Snapchat.
How did the defendant respond when he came into the room?
He was very angry and he ended up taking my phone and breaking it.
What, if anything, did the defendant say?
He asked me who I was talking to and had I been talking to guys.
How did you respond?
I told him I had not been talking to anyone.
What did the defendant do?
He then took the phone and broke it.
Did you see him break it?
Yes, I did.
How did the defendant break your phone?
He slammed it
On what?
on the ground.
Do you remember what type of phone you had?
It was an iPhone.
And after the defendant slammed the phone to the ground, what did you, or what happened?
After that, he had left me in the room.
And when you say he left you in the room, what did you mean by that?
Meaning that I had to stay in the room until he came back whenever he cooled down.
How did you know? Why did you believe you had to stay in the room?
Because it was a rule of his.
But what, if anything, did he do to convey to you that you needed to stay in the room?
He told me that I could not leave the room.
What, if any, where did the defendant then go?
I don't know.
Did he stay in the room?
No, he left.
What did you do while you were inside the room?
I wrote a letter apologizing.
Do you remember what you wrote in the letter, generally speaking?
I was very remorseful because he eventually forgave me.
How, if at all, were you able to give the defendant the letter you wrote?
When he would come into the room, I would give him the sheet of paper.
And what, if any, do you remember how the defendant responded?
He would take it, and if it was to his liking, he would come back in. And he would then chastise me, and I would be forgiven.
And when you say chastise, did he chastise you? What again do you mean by that?
Meaning that I was spanked
By whom?
by the defendant.
And what did he use to spank you?
His open palm
On what part of your body?
on my legs and on my butt.
And were you clothed when he spanked you?
I was not.
Now, you mentioned earlier that the defendant told you that the defendant didn't want you to talk to him and you with others. Do you recall that testimony?
Yes, I do.
Did you always follow that rule?
I did not.
Was there ever a time when the defendant learned that you had not followed that rule?
Yes.
What happened?
um, it would usually result in me getting chastised.
Do you remember a particular instance where the defendant learned that you had been talking about personal business?
In Atlanta, yes.
What happened?
That is the incident that I already expressed.
Oh, the one you testified earlier about involving Mia?
Yes.
You testified earlier about an individual named Juice. Do you recall that this morning?
Yes, I do.
At the time when you met Juice, what did you understand Juice to be? Time when you met Juice, what did you
I apologize. He had expressed to me that Juice was a homegirl of his that was in town from Chicago.
and did you later learn that Juice had a different relationship with the defendant?
Yes, I did.
What did you learn?
That she was actually a living girlfriend of the defendant.
And what if any instructions did Juice give you?
Juice would basically tell me, she would try to tell me what to wear and how to dress, or not to talk to men, or just to like ignore specific situations.
And what, if anything, did you think about the instructions that you were receiving from Juice?
Initially, I didn't know that they were coming from him, so I didn't care.
Do you recall having any conversations with other people about that?
Yes, I do.
Who do you remember telling?
I had expressed to my family
What did you express to your family?
that I did not like Juice, and because she was like trying to tell me everything to do.
And at any point, did the defendant learn about that? Three.
Jane?
Yes, he did.
How did the defendant learn?
He happened to check my phone and he saw it.
What else did he see?
He saw that I had texted my parents and I had expressed that Juice was basically acting like a PO and that I didn't like her, and
What do you mean by PO?
meaning that every little detail she would be trying to like tell me, no, you can't do this, you can't do this, or you can't do that, or you can't just leave out. And I thought that it was very bizarre for her, another woman, to be telling me what I could and could not be doing.
And when you say PO, what does PO stand for?
Like a police officer.
What did the defendant do, if anything, when he saw that you had been communicating about Juice with your family?
He immediately made me text them and apologize and say that everything was on good terms between me and Juice.
And did you do that?
And I did. Yes, I did.
What, if anything, else happened?
After that, I never mentioned Juice to them again.
You testified earlier about a sexual contact that you had with the defendant, including while you were 17. Were you also, did you also have sexual contact with other women in the defendant's presence?
Yes, I did.
Whose idea was it for you to have sexual contact with others in the presence of the defendant?
It was the defendant's choice.
At the defendant's direction, did you have sexual contact?
Objection. I haven't heard a question yet.
May I continue?
Well, don't lead if that's what you're starting to do.
All right. How many people did you have sexual contact with at the same time?
Every setting was different. It was whatever the defendant wanted. However, there were times where it was everybody in girlfriend, meaning there were times where it could possibly be just be a woman that he knew in Chicago for a weekend.
But fair to say it was more than one.
Yes,
Now, who would choose the female you would have the sexual encounter with on a particular occasion?
the defendant.
I'm showing what's in evidence is Government Exhibit 52B. Who is that again?
That's Juice.
Did you ever have any sexual encounters with Juice?
I did. Yes.
Whose idea was that?
The defendant's.
Do you recall how old you were when you first had a sexual encounter with Juice?
17.
I'm showing the witness what's in evidence is Government Exhibit 69B. Who is that?
Meek.
Did you ever have a sexual encounter with defendant with Meek?
I did. Yes.
Whose idea was that?
The defendant.
I'm showing what's in evidence is Government Exhibit 72. Who is that?
V.
Did you ever have a sexual encounter with V?
I did. Yes.
Whose idea was that?
The defendant's.
And I'm showing what's in evidence is Government Exhibit 78. Who is that?
Joy.
Did you ever have a sexual encounter with her?
I did. Yes.
Whose idea was that?
The defendant.
I'm showing the witness only what's been marked for identification as Government Exhibit 76. Without saying that individual's name, do you recognize who that is?
I do. Yes.
And how did you meet that individual?
Through the defendant.
What, if any, sexual contact did you have with that individual?
We were intimate. Yes.
Whose idea was that?
It was the defendant's.
The government offers Government Exhibit 76.
Any objection? No. All right. That's in evidence. Is that for the jury or for.
Yes, you can publish it. And I'm showing the witness only what's been marked for identification as Government Exhibit 77. Do you recognize Government Exhibit 77?
I do, yes.
Without saying her name, how did you meet her?
Uh, through the defendant.
And what, if any, sexual contact did you have with that individual?
We were intimate.
Whose idea was that?
The defendant's.
The government offers Government Exhibit 77.
No objection. Okay, that's in evidence.
May I publish? Now, you just testified about sexual contact that you had with a number of females. Was the defendant present when you had sexual contact with those individuals?
Every time.
Was there ever a time when he wasn't present?
Never.
Who, if any, of the defendant's employees did he ask you to have sexual contact with?
Objection, Your Honor. Overruled.
A few, actually.
Do you remember their names?
Lily and Cassandra, I believe.
I'm sorry.
I object to the last response. Overruled.
I'm showing the witness what's been marked for identification is Government Exhibit 41, the witness only. Do you recognize Government Exhibit 41?
I do.
Who is that?
That is Cassandra.
Is that the Cassandra that you just mentioned the defendant had you have sexual contact with?
Yes, it is.
Government offers Exhibit 41.
Any objection? No. Okay, that's in evidence.
And I'm now showing what's been marked for identification just to the witness only. Government Exhibit 42. What's shown in Government Exhibit 42? Do you recognize?
Yes, I do.
Who is that?
That is Lily.
And is the individual you identified as Lily the same Lily that you just testified the defendant had you have a sexual encounter with?
Yes, she is.
Government offers Government Exhibit 42.
Any objection? None. Okay, that's an exhibit.
Aside from the women you just identified, were there other women or females with whom the individual directed you to have a sexual encounter with?
Yes.
Do you know the names of those individuals? Without saying them, do you know their names?
Yes.
Hold on, just 1 second. All right, does anyone on the jury need to take a break? No, no. Can I talk to you at the side? Oh well. I need you to address it here. No? You can wait for a few minutes, or do you have to talk to her now? Well, we're going to take a 5-minute break. Please don't talk about the case, and you can address whatever issue you have with Miss Green. All right? All right. All right. The witness can step down. Let's bring them back if we're all done. One of the jury says he can't see the pictures.
I'll keep them on for a longer period of time. I can show them again.
All right. And give them an instruction that they'll be able to see them when they deliberate as well. Do you have? I know you don't want me to ask this question, but do you have any idea how long your direct will be?
It's going to be the rest of the day, but I'm hoping that I will be finished or very near finished.
Okay, all right. Everyone can sit down. Sorry. Should we get the witness? Let's get the witness back. Yes. All right. Let let's get the jury. Please. All rise. You may be seated.
May I proceed?
Yes, go ahead. The witness is reminded that you're still under oath. Before you do proceed, I just want to remind you, there's a lot of pieces of evidence coming in. And I've asked the assistant US state attorney to make sure that it is up as long enough as for a long enough time for you to take a look at it. But also don't have to commit any of these things to memory. If your final deliberation, no, in your final deliberation, you'll have access to all the evidence during deliberation. So with that, you can go ahead.
Your Honor, may I briefly just show the photos that I previously put on the ELMO?
Let's continue and you know what? Go ahead and show them. That's fine.
Okay, I'll file be brief. This is Government Exhibit 78, 52B, 69B, 72, 76, 77, 41, 42. All right, you testified in addition to the females that I just placed on the screen for the jury that there were, in addition, that other females that the defendant asked you to have sexual contact or told you to have sexual contact with. Is that correct?
Mm-mm.
Yes.
Sorry.
And do you recall some of the names of those additional individuals?
Not all of them, but yes, a few.
Who do you remember?
There was a girl by the name of Chrissy. There was another woman by the name of Auntie April. And those are the only two names that I know.
And were there additional individuals, additional females who went to the defendant, who the defendant directed you to have sex with? You, whose names you do not currently remember?
Yes.
Mm. Did you always know the names of the individuals who you had sexual contact with at the defendant's discretion?
No.
Objection. I didn't hear. I'm sorry, Mr. Kanik. Objection to the characterization of that question. Direction. Overrule.
How frequently did you have sexual encounters with females?
Whenever the defendant wanted it. So it could be every day back to back, or it could be every 2 days, or
During those sexual encounters, who, if anyone, was in charge?
the defendant was always in charge
And why do you say that?
because he told everyone exactly what to do.
Who would he tell what to do?
Me and the other women.
What types of things would he say, or what type of things would he tell you or the other females to do?
He would orchestrate everything. So again, if he wanted one person to walk while someone was giving him oral head, then that's what it would be. If he wanted to have vaginal penetration while making the other person would walk or crawl, then that's what it would be.
Were any of these sexual encounters recorded?
Yes, they were.
Who recorded them?
The defendant
With what were these encounters recorded?
with an iPad.
And again, how old were you when these sexual encounters with other females began?
I was 17.
Did you want any of these sexual encounters with other women?
Never.
Why did you do it?
Because he would force me to do so.
How so?
Sometimes it will be a punishment, and other times I would be He would tell me to come to the room, and he would already be in the middle of an act.
Were there times when you resisted having a sexual encounter with a female?
Yes, there were.
What, if anything, happened when you resisted?
He would usually tell me to wait in another room until he was done, and I, as usual, chastised.
And where would the defendant tell you to wait?
If we were in a hotel, then I would have to wait in the restroom, or if we were, regardless of where we were, I would usually have to wait in a restroom or in another room that was near where he was having intercourse.
And you said that after that you would see the defendant.
Yeah, I would have to wait until he was done,
And what do you mean again by the defendant would chastise you?
meaning that he would spank me
And why did you understand the defendant was spanking you?
because he wanted me to perform the specific way, and I did not do so.
And what specifically did he want you to perform?
He wanted me to be intimate with other women.
You testified that there were a recording made. Were those video recordings?
Yes, they were.
Did you ever see any of those video recordings?
Yes, I did.
In what context would you see video recordings of sexual encounters between you and other females?
If you wanted to play it back and show you, he would, but it would usually be us in the middle of having intercourse or oral sex.
And what would happen in the middle of that?
He would just be playing back what we had just done
For what reason or why did you understand he was doing that?
to have you to like brag and boast about it.
Who chose the women who you had those sexual encounters with?
The defendant.
You testified earlier that you were homeschooled or you for your senior year of high school, is that right?
Yes,
Did you graduate?
I did. Yes.
And after you graduated high school, did you consider attending college?
At that time, no, I did not,
Why not?
because I had already forfeited all of my scholarships.
What do you mean by that?
I was no longer taking vocal classes or Patriot singers, so there was really no other scholarships that I had been pursuing.
You testified that earlier that you were with the defendant for part of the Black Panties tour as well as the buffet tour. Did you accompany the defendant at any other tours?
Yes, he had an after party tour.
Do you remember when that was?
I do not remember the year that it started. No,
When the defendant was not on tour, where would you usually spend your time? In that city or cities?
the studio or Atlanta, Georgia,
When you were in Chicago, where would you spend your nights?
the studio.
Which studio?
In the beginning of 2015, the Ohio, and later the Justine Street studio.
And is the Justine Street studio the studio where the photos in Government Exhibit 926 were of?
Yes. Over the time that, oop,
Over
yes,
the time that you were with the defendant, who, if anyone else, stayed at the Justine Street studio?
all of his other living girlfriends.
And where in the studio would they stay?
Uh, Everyone had their own place.
And by place, where was it? What do you
Well,
mean?
well, I mean, usually Juice and V had a room. Neek was usually in the master bedroom or the bunk bedroom. Joy was usually in the living room. And me and the defendant were usually in a downstairs living room on the couch.
Now, you testified earlier that some of the photos in 926 were different than how you remembered them because there was furniture missing. Is that right?
That is correct.
And what type of furniture was missing?
The majority of the bedrooms were taken out of the studio, and where the
And were
bedrooms
those the
were,
bedrooms where Juice and Joy, Meek and V, and you and the defendant slept?
yes, it was.
What, if any, rules did the defendant have for the manner in which you interjected with men other than the defendant? Interacted with men other than the defendant?
We cannot talk to any men at all.
When you were in an elevator, what would you do?
We would have to turn around.
And when you say we, who are you referring to?
All of his live-in girlfriends.
Including Juice and Joy and Meek and V?
Yes,
And why did you understand that you should turn around when you entered an elevator?
because we were not allowed to look at men.
Who told you that?
The defendant.
And when you say turned around in the elevator, what were you facing?
I would have to face the corner.
How about when you went to a nail salon? What, if any, restrictions were there? Did the defendant have for you when you went to the nail salon?
If there was a man working, then I would not be able to go into the establishment.
What would you do?
I would have to leave out and call him immediately and let him know that there was a man working.
What, if anything, did the defendant typically carry with him?
He carried a backpack.
Objection.
Objection. Overruled.
Did he carry it himself or did someone carry it on his behalf?
It was both.
Who would carry when someone else was carrying it? Who would carry it?
Sometimes he would give it to me and any of his other living girlfriends, and sometimes he would give it to his assistants.
Which of his assistants might he give it to?
His Uncle Bug.
Did you ever have an opportunity to look inside his backpack?
Yes.
What did you see in it?
Usually it was only iPads, a white tee, maybe like basketball shorts, and usually a dildo.
Hmm. How many iPads did you see in the defendant's backpack at once?
It depends on how many could fit in that backpack, but usually anywhere from 4 to 6.
Did you ever attend basketball games with the defendant?
Yes, I did.
What would you do during the basketball game?
I would sit with the other living girlfriends on the side.
Who, if anyone else, would you sit with other than the living girlfriends?
An assistant.
And what would you do during the basketball games?
We would just have to watch the defendant play and only him.
And what do you mean by watch only him?
Like if we ended up looking at another man, we would get chastised for it.
And what do you mean by chastising?
A spanking.
How often did you watch the defendant play basketball?
Nearly every night.
Where did you watch him play basketball?
Usually his old school or churches would be open up there. Basketballs at nighttime for him.
How would you travel around Chicago when you were in Chicago?
He had 2 Sprinter vans, and anytime I needed to take a taxi.
Who would travel on the Sprinter van?
Me, the defendant, the drivers, whichever assistant was there for the time being. And if it was everyone, then it would be me, him, and also the living girlfriends.
Where would you go in the Sprinter van?
We would usually just only go to parks or park outside of the cigar bar or just to get food.
When he went to the cigar bar, what would you do?
We would have to stay in the Sprinter until he got back on.
What would the defendant do?
He would get off and go smoke cigars.
And who was the we in that sentence when you said we would have to stay on the Sprinter van?
Me and the other girlfriends.
Was there a bathroom on the Sprinter van?
No, there was not.
What would you do if you needed to use the bathroom while you were on the Sprinter van?
All of us would have to turn around and let the other person go behind the seat.
Why not walk outside and find a bathroom?
Because we weren't allowed to get off the Sprinter.
Who told you that you weren't allowed to get off the Sprinter?
The defendant.
And again, when you say us, who are you referring to?
Me and his other girlfriends.
You testified that there were also some of the defendant's assistants who were sometimes on the Sprinter van. Is that right?
Yes.
Were there times when the assistant needed to use the bathroom?
Yes.
What would the assistant do?
The assistant can get off.
And use the bathroom outside the Sprinter van?
Yes.
You said that you would go to the bathroom in the Sprinter van. How would you do that?
They usually had gas stations like extra large cups, and they need to keep towels and tissue paper on the Sprinter. When the defendant returned to the Sprinter van after some time
When the
away,
defendant returned to the Sprinter van after some time away, how, if at all, would you act when he returned?
everyone would have to get up and greet him and kiss him immediately.
Were there times when you saw other of his live-in girlfriends break one of the defendant's rules?
Yeah.
What, if anything, would you do?
I would have to report it.
Report it to whom?
The defendant.
Why would you do that?
Because that was a rule. If you didn't, you would also get chastised for not letting him know.
And how did you know about that rule?
Because I had witnessed it.
What do you mean?
I had seen it happen a few times, a few of the other girls, to a few of the other girls.
What have you seen happen?
Meaning one of them did not let him know, and he had began to chastise them.
And again, what do you mean by chastising?
Thanking.
While you were living with the defendant, did the defendant employ other people to fulfill certain roles for him?
Yes, he did.
What roles did he employ people to do?
He had personal doctors. He had accountants, attorneys, assistants for his living girlfriends, and for himself personally. He had security. Of course, he had the tour driver.
Did you testified earlier about Top Gun? Who was Top Gun again?
That was his tour bus driver.
And were there other individuals who drove the defendant's Sprinter or tour buses?
Yes, for the most part. Tour bus, no. Sprinter, yes. Usually it was his security or his entourage or sometimes family members.
Were you ever... Oh, you also mentioned that the defendant had his assistants that helped him in particular. Who were they?
His assistants were usually male assistants, and for the girls, it was a female assistant.
And the male assistants that the defendant had, did you learn any of their names?
Yes, they did.
Who were some of the male assistants?
His uncle Junebug and a person, Junebug.
And I'm showing you what has been marked for identification as Government Exhibit 3. I think this one is actually in evidence. Do you recognize Government Exhibit 3?
Yes.
Who is that?
Junebug.
And was that one of the defendant's assistants?
Yes.
Can you put government 3 on there, please? And I'm showing now you what's in evidence is government exhibit 4. Do you recognize government exhibit 4?
Yes.
Who is that?
That's Uncle Bug.
And what role did Uncle Bug serve for the defendant?
He was his personal assistant.
Can you put government 4? Thank you. You also mentioned that the defendant had assistance for his female guests. Were you one of those female guests?
Yes, I was. Yes.
Do you know the names of his assistants for his female guests?
Yes.
Who were they?
Cheryl, Diana, the twins, Lily, Ashanti, and Cassandra.
Do you know Cheryl's last name?
Cheryl Matt.
Can you put government exhibit 38, which is in evidence? Again, putting government exhibit 38 on the screen. Who is that?
That is Cheryl.
And you also mentioned the twins. Do you know the twins' name?
Suzette and Alizette, I believe.
And what did they do for the defendant?
They were assistants for the girl, his girlfriend.
And I am showing you what's been marked for identification. I'm showing the witness only what's been marked for identification is government exhibit 39. Who is that?
That's Suzette.
The government offers 39.
Any objection?
No objection. Any objection? No objection. Okay, that's in evidence.
Well, actually, I think that is the other twin. I'm sorry. They're twins.
So you're not sure which one it is?
They're identical twins.
No, they're not. We tell them apart. All right. So that's the one. That's one of the twins. Is that right?
Yes.
All right.
And I'm showing you government exhibit. I'm showing the witness only what's been marked for identification as government exhibit 40. Do you recognize government exhibit 40?
Yes, this is Suzette.
And who is she?
An assistant.
Was she one of the twins?
Yes.
And you testified earlier that these were assistants for his female guests. Who employed these assistants?
The defendant.
And who did these assistants work for?
The female guest.
Who did they take direction from?
The defendant and from his girlfriends.
The government offers exhibit 40.
Any objection? No. All right. That's in evidence.
I'm showing the witness only what's been marked for identification as government exhibit 36. Who is shown in government exhibit 36?
That's Diana.
And what did Diana do?
She was an assistant for his girlfriends.
The government offers exhibit 36.
No objection. Okay, that's in evidence.
And I'm showing you what's been showing the witness only what's been marked for identification as government exhibit 74. Do you recognize what's shown in 74?
Yes.
What is that?
That is Ashanti.
What did Asante do?
She was training to be an assistant for his living girlfriends.
And who did she work for?
The defendant.
The government
Oh, sorry.
The government offers exhibit 74.
Any objection? No. All right, that's in evidence.
And I'm showing the witness, I'm showing everyone what's in evidence is government exhibit 41. Who is that again?
That is Cassandra.
What did she do for the defendant?
She was an assistant to him and his living girlfriends.
And government exhibit 42, which is in evidence already, who is that?
That is Lily.
What did she do?
She was an assistant for the defendant and his living girlfriend.
You testified that the defendant also employed people as security. Did you do you know some of the individuals who served as security for the defendant?
Ooh. His security was always men, but I do know um, of one who was a female.
Now, do you know the names of any of the men who served as security for the defendant?
No, I do not.
You testified that there was also a female. Is that right?
Yes, there was.
Do you know the name of that individual?
Her name was Candy.
I am showing the witness only what's been marked for identification as government exhibit 22. One moment. Do you recognize the individual shown in government exhibit 22?
Yes,
Who is that?
that is Candy.
What did Candy do for the defendant?
She was security.
The government offers exhibit 22.
No objection. All right, that is in evidence. You can publish.
I'm showing the witness only what's been marked for identification as government exhibit 5. Do you recognize government exhibit 5?
My screen is black.
I'm sorry. Can I show the witness only what's been marked for identification as government exhibit 5?
Yes, I do.
Who is that?
I believe that is a family member of the defendant.
What, if anything, did he do for the defendant?
He played basketball with the defendant and he did act as like an assistant.
Do you know his name?
I believe it was Van.
The government offers exhibit 5.
Your Honor, my only objection is, does she show or not? She's saying, I believe. Does she know or not? She's saying, I believe. I can't hear you. I'm sorry. My only objection is either she knows this person or she doesn't. She believes. Oh, okay. When you say you believe you know him, do you know the person?
Yes, I do.
Okay. Okay.
I do.
Anything else?
What
What
did
is his
he?
name?
I don't know if he went by Van or Vance.
Okay, no objection, Your Honor. That is in evidence.
Thank you. Was there a time when you did, in fact, become pregnant while you were with the defendant?
It was.
Do you remember when that was?
It was in 2017.
Did you have the baby?
I did not.
What happened?
The defendant made me get an abortion.
What, if anything, did he tell you?
He had expressed that he still wanted me to keep my body tight and that he wanted to start a family when he had gotten rid of the rest of the girl.
Did you ultimately get an abortion?
I did.
Who arranged that appointment?
The defendant and his assistant, Diana.
And who took you to that appointment?
Diana.
Did you want to have an abortion?
I did not.
I am showing the witness only what's been marked for identification is government exhibit 481. Your Honor, may I approach?
Yes.
Did you recognize what was shown in government exhibit 481?
Yes.
Our screen is black. That's because she's the only one. That's because she was only showing her.
Government Exhibit 481. What is that?
It is a conversation between me and the defendant.
And do you know approximately when that took place?
I didn't look at the date. I'm sorry.
Do you remember what was going on that took place?
Yes, I was pregnant.
And was that before you had an abortion?
That was immediately after I had let him know that I was pregnant.
And did this contain statements from the defendant?
Yes, it does.
The government offers 481.
Any objection? Can I see it?
You should have 481.
That is a question I have. Do you guys have a binder of the government exhibit? Yes. Okay. No objection. All right. That's in evidence. Do you want jury only?
No, you can publish this.
Okay.
I want to direct, and if you want me to bring it to you because this type is small, this one right here indicating where my pen is pointing, can you tell who wrote that particular text message?
The defendant.
Can you read that?
He said, I'm not going to lie. I was happy to know that as well. I really was there, but I also was kind of thrown back the way you reacted to my reaction. I don't care what's going on in our life. I need to be trusted by you 1,000,000%. That way, when I say something, you don't have to hesitate. You do it and you go with it. And when you do that, I don't know. I just know who you are to me. I know you were young, but that is no excuse to disobey me or not do what I tell you to do. You have some issues in that area of not doing what I tell you all when you get in trouble. You shut down and be hard headed. You cut me off while I'm talking. Now, you didn't used to do, now you used to didn't do any of that. Believe me, God knows. I want the same things you want, but God also knows my heart. And it's never going to happen until you grow up and start to show me you are going to do what you are supposed to do because I go through too much to have to deal with. Well, because I go through too much to have to deal with you not giving me the information that I told you over and over to give me. When you know you're young and there's a lot of things you don't know. So when you argue back at me, it shows me that you will rebel on me. And it shows me that you're not humble as you used to be. You are young, therefore, you have no say so yet. Except that, own it and be glad that you have someone to make the decisions and be thankful that that's all he wants. All those things with you. So make sure your motive is right before doing something like that. Make sure you want to do it because you're old enough, wise enough, and strong enough, not just because you want to be bonded with me, because I want to groom you and be bonded with you 1,000,000% before that. And it's absolutely nothing wrong with it if you know you're going to do what you're supposed to do and get it together, or you should have no problem being patient and waiting. That's all I'm going to say. Way now. Other than that, I love you. I'm in love with you, and I will never change my mind about me and you and us. Now get some sleep.
And who wrote that?
The defendant.
During your time with the defendant, did you ever mention his marriage? Did he ever mention his marriage to Aaliyah to you?
He did, yes.
On one occasion or more than one occasion?
On more than one occasion.
I want to direct your attention to a conversation that you had in front of others about Aaliyah. Do you recall where that took place?
Yes, I do.
Where was it?
It was at a park.
Who else was present for that conversation?
The rest of the girlfriends.
And how did the defendant's marriage to Aaliyah come up?
The defendant said that we could ask him anything.
What, if anything, was asked with respect to Aaliyah and his marriage to her?
Objection. Overrule.
We asked many questions. All of us took turns, and basically, we asked him about the situation and why they basically got married.
What, if anything, did the defendant say?
Objection. Overrule. It's a statement of defense of the defendant. Go ahead.
The defendant had expressed to all of us that Aaliyah was pregnant and that they needed a certificate for her to be married in order for her to possibly get an abortion.
What, if anything else, did the defendant say about Aaliyah?
He had expressed that because she was a minor, that in order for her to get an abortion outside of her parents, the only people that could go with her was a spouse. And that was their reasoning for getting married.
What, if anything, did the defendant say about a phone that Aaliyah had?
He said that he had given her money and a bat phone.
What did you understand the defendant to mean by a bat phone?
A burner phone.
Why did you understand that to be the case?
He said that he had given her a bat phone just in case it was basically 911, an emergency, and she had no way of getting in touch with him. And that was the only time to use that phone.
Did you have any other conversations with the defendant about the use of a burner phone?
Yes.
Okay, guys, we're going to end right here because she has to take some time off. So we are at page 992 at number 1, okay? 992, number 1. So we'll continue this tonight and then hopefully we'll start the cross-examination. Thank you, everybody.
Thank
You're
you.
welcome. Thank you.
Good night. All right. I'm going to end this live because this Adam person wants to do a panel. I want to know who this person is. All right. I'm going to end this and I'll be on for this panel. Okay. Later.
Okay.
All righty.